Welcome to the Rankings Podcast, where we feature top founders, entrepreneurs, and elite personal injury attorneys and share their inspiring stories. Now, let's get started with the show.
Chris Dreyer here, president and founder of Rankings.io, where we help elite personal injury attorneys dominate first-page rankings. You're listening to the Rankings Podcast, where I feature innovative business owners and, of course, elite personal injury attorneys. I'm excited to have John Gomez on the show today. John is the president and founder of Gomez Trial Attorneys, San Diego's top trial and serious personal injury law firm. John is one of California's most accomplished trial lawyers and has twice been named San Diego's Lawyer of the Year by Lawyers USA. In 2010, he was also recognized as their national recipient. Consumer Attorneys of San Diego has named him an outstanding trial lawyer a record 10 times, and his peers have voted him a top 10 San Diego super lawyer every year since 2012. John, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Chris. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really excited. So let's just dive right in. So how did you get started? Where did the idea come from to create Gomez Trial Attorneys?
Well, when I came out of law school, I worked for a big defense firm called Latham & Watkins. And so I was doing corporate work for big companies. And I kind of knew that I wanted to try cases. And so then I took a job as a federal prosecutor in San Diego. And so I figured out that I was really good at winning trials, but I didn't really like putting, what I perceived to be largely poor Mexicans in prison. And so, I said, okay, I'm good at winning trials. What can I do? What job can I have that rewards a propensity to win trials? And how can I work for the little guy? And so that all came together. And I said, okay, well, I'll go be basically a plaintiff's lawyer doing personal injury work. So that's where the idea came from.
That's great. So what were the early days of the company like? What were the early days of the firm like?
So the early days were that I called up a paralegal that I still have today, Amy Collins, and I said, hey, do you want to go form this firm? And she said yes. And so we got some space, and we had a card table, and we had a boom box, and we had 6 cases. The computers weren't quite turned on yet. We were waiting for the phone to be turned on. Then the phone got turned on, and we would just sit around because nobody would call. So we would say, oh, let's go to the hardware store, pick up something for the office. So we'd walk down there. And then she'd say, oh, we got to make a copy. Let's go to Kinko's. So we'd walk down there. And so the beginnings of the firm were what I would call inauspicious, there wasn't much going on, but we had big dreams.
Yeah, so she was like your Jerry Maguire in the movie.
Yeah. She was the one that came. She was of everybody that wanted, she was the one that jumped on board the ship that didn't look so great at the beginning.
So take me, you've turned Gomez Trial Attorneys into a massive success. So what were some of those early turning points that really got a jump start and took the company to the next level?
Yeah, so probably 6 months into the firm's existence, one of the files that we had involved a wrongful death of a young man here in San Diego in a very, very high profile case. It was called the American Beauty murder. And so, since then it's been on TV shows and stuff. And so we tried the civil case against this young lady, Kristen Rossum, who murdered her husband, in the county of San Diego where she worked. Basically, she was a toxicologist, had stolen fentanyl from work, was high on meth that she got from work, and killed her husband. So we sued the county too. And so we were basically tapped for money at that time. But the news was in there every day. It was a very, very high profile event. And we won the case. We won a verdict of $106 million. And so, we were like right here. We were like just about to crash. Big win. And so the phone started ringing, and thankfully, that was the beginning of hopefully, some other success stories.
Yeah, so there was just a ton of momentum, I'm sure, from the press, from just everything, not only even from a cash standpoint, being able to invest in some of these marketing initiatives. You know, after you got this big win and you went to that next level, and you started to grow and you hit this next chapter, what were some of the mistakes maybe on that journey that you encountered? Well, was it hiring, firing, marketing mistakes? What were some of those mistakes that you learned from?
Yeah, 100%. My biggest mistakes were personnel involved. And so, what I would say is I would bring in, senior people that I didn't really have a great relationship with, or that they didn't have that loyalty toward me. And I vested them with a lot of responsibility, invested in them heavily. And so, that for sure, would be the biggest mistake I made. Now, if I'm going to go, put someone in another office or, put someone in charge of a practice area, I have a relationship with that person. I know there's going to be some sense of loyalty. I prefer to hire from within. So for sure, I would say a combination of that, bringing in kind of senior people that I didn't have a great relationship with and trusting them too much. And then also I would say, not firing quickly enough, holding on to people that really weren't excellent fits or excellent contributors. And so now, I feel like I have a great team, very hardworking, talented people with some degree of loyalty to the firm. And so I feel like that is a recipe for success.
Yeah, let's dive into that specifically. So are there any tips for our audience? What are those things that you look at, or maybe what's your hiring process like when you're trying to identify these people that are the right fit?
Well, our new lawyers now, pretty exclusively for the last maybe 5 years have come through our law clerk program. And so we'll hire these people while they're still law students, right? And so we get a very good look at, their character, their work quality, their work ethic. And so, and we also have a relationship with them. And so they're with us for, 2 years or something. And so, at that point, we have a pretty good idea who they are, how committed they are to this work. And then of that group, we're going to, offer some of them permanent jobs. And so that's such a much better way to do it than to just go out and hire someone cold, because, and we're getting good, work quality from these people in the meanwhile. We're not paying them a ton while they're in law school, and they're doing quality work, they're contributing. And at the same time, we're getting a good feel for who they are and whether they would be a good permanent fit.
I love that. I think of it, in almost in like football terms. You've got your special teams that don't really have that starting position and offense or defense, but you get to see how their work ethic or you think of it it is like an internship, and then you're not guessing and trying to do these like trick questions, or you come to the meeting late and see how they respond or whatever. So I really like that. You get to know them on a much deeper level.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, speaking of football, I play college football. So can you imagine, you're out there for your first game and you're like, oh, you look like a good wide receiver. You go play wide receiver. We have the opportunity to conduct spring practice, so we get to see them all spring. We have them in the fall camp, so we get a good look at them before we put them in the lineup.
I may or may not have researched that you played football and might have thrown that in there. Looking back now at you've hit these different milestones. So what was, a proudest moment, a moment you look back and you're especially proud of a big success? What was a contributor to getting there?
It's funny because I was pondering that question and thinking about trials, and I can't really point to a trial or a litigation. I would say the thing that I'm proudest of is how we've responded as an organization to this COVID-19 crisis. I feel like, so I'll tell you what happened. Basically, it was like a Friday, things were escalating. I knew we were going to be kind of, physically out of the office And by the way, I'm in the office, it's me and a receptionist that comes in for the mail, and we have 25,000 square feet, so I feel pretty safe. So over the weekend, me and my partners really reflected on how we were going to handle this. One, it didn't take us long to get everyone equipped to work remotely. That wasn't really the big deal. The big deal was going to be, how do we lead, how do we manage, and how do we pivot, through this time. And so, I made a commitment that weekend. I said, look, because I looked at our financials and our projections, and I knew that we were fine. I knew that, even if we weren't signing cases, or even if we weren't resolving cases for some period of time, we were going to be fine. And for the reasons that I told you before, I feel really good about our team. I feel like we have no one on the team that's not a contributor and loyal. And so, I made a decision. I was going to announce that Monday, first thing in a Zoom meeting, which we have every day, that we weren't going to fire anybody, and that we were fine financially, and that we were going to get through this. We were still going to have our retreat. We were still going to have bonuses. Everyone was going to be fine, and since then, I feel like we've done a whole lot in terms of culture, in terms of keeping everybody happy and engaged and committed, so I feel very good about that. I feel like the team has become closer. I feel like our productivity has actually gone up, and we pivoted very hard to take advantage of what we perceive to be emerging practice areas. And so, I looked at this, and the team looked at this, and we immediately sort of, focused on, all derivations of opportunities that would arise from this crisis. And, when I say opportunities, I don't mean to sound opportunistic, but people are going to need help after crises. And so business interruption cases in particular, I feel like we were at the very forefront of that. We have been, I think, among the national leaders in those cases. We're doing cruise ship cases. We're looking at nursing home cases, meat packing cases, employment cases, and actually, we as a team have been busier than ever. And at the same time, our core practices of personal injury and sexual abuse have been, still, rocking.
Yeah, the first thing that you've mentioned there, when you got the whole team together and you said, hey, nobody's getting fired, nobody's losing their bonus. So all that anxiety that they're probably feeling and just uncertainty, because people don't work as well out of stress and fear, so immediately you just got rid of all that. And then it went to, so now all that after all that was behind you, now it's like, hey, what can we do? Like, what can we pivot to? And I think that was extremely smart, and getting first in, right? Because people are going to start to copy you and model you, and then there's going to be multiple pages on the internet, but getting first in, you get to kind of carve out your own landscape, so to speak.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the funny thing was, like, that very first week, I was getting all these calls, this firm laid off all these people, this firm laid off all these people. And I was thinking to myself, well, how are they really that cash light, and or how can they really predict with such certainty that this event is going to cause them to actually lose revenue, like that, like over the course of like 2 days. And so we found that, at least on the personal injury side, cases are continuing to resolve, and I would say, at least for us, the percentage of cases that have resolved has increased. I know we're not gonna be able to try cases for a little bit, but, it just seemed very reactionary, very panicky.
Right.
And, not a way to, I don't think, lead an organization.
Yeah. So, and I think that's really smart. I think, the doors are going to open back up, and I think it's just smart. You're doing the evergreen type strategies. John, one of the things I wanted to dive into is you're known in San Diego not only for your legal work, but also for the work in the community. And I pulled this off of your blog. It said, my vision for Gomez trial attorneys in the future is to keep improving as many lives as we possibly can through law, through our team, as human beings first. Can you expound on that?
Yeah, sure. And so, sometimes I kind of struggle with the idea of growth, but then I think if we grow as an organization, then we can help more people in the community as lawyers, one, and then two, if we grow, then, I've got employees and team members here with families. And so we think about all those people we're supporting, financially and otherwise. And then we've always been very, very, community oriented in terms of, our work out in the community and in terms of financially supporting, charities and good causes. And so, that's kind of at the backbone of what we do. And in terms of our mission statement, it's one of our guiding principles. We always improve our community. So like, for instance, right now, I'm very involved in my church. And so, the church is doing a lot in the community. So we've given a bunch of money to them. We are going out in the community, delivering food to, hospital workers, firefighters, police officers, donating a bunch of masks. One thing I did for my people, I gave them like a $500 allotment to buy takeout to support local businesses, and I told them they have to tip a lot. So we did that. We're just always, we feel like it's super important, because, we don't have a great name, personal injury lawyers. And so, I think that's a mistake in perception on the part of the public. And so we want to correct that, for us and for other lawyers, and also just, it's just consistent with our principles.
I really love the mission, and it's you're putting that karma out there, that goodwill, and people talk about branding and marketing a lot of different ways, but a lot of people talk about it as know, like, and trust. And you're being likable in the community. You're helping your fellow, community, and I just think that's really powerful on its own there. And the mission's incredible because it kind of just rounds everything together.
Yeah, it's a super long play, like I think a lot of lawyers may underemphasize the value of brand. You're not going to get that immediate return. It's not like a pay-per-click or, your SEO is going to come up on personal injury. But, over time, if you consistently build your brand and your brand is consistent with values that the public admires, over time, you're going to get that return. And we don't do it for that reason. It's not like we're trying to make more money, but it's a nice, byproduct of things. And I think you're right.
Let's talk about your personal growth here. So what are some of your favorite business books, that you read and have kind of influenced you as an individual?
I really like John Morgan has written 2 books, Can't Teach Hungry, Can't Teach Vision. I really like those books. There's a book called CVN First. Let me get the author. By Bob Crumley, Crumley, which I really like. I really like Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink, who's a retired Navy SEAL that works here that lives here in San Diego. Mm-hmm. I like Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. It's not really a leadership, book, but it's a book about sort of personal strength. Those are the books I like.
Yeah, those are great books, and I listened to David over at the Crisp Game Changers, and he's pretty intense. He definitely motivates you. Oh yeah, he was pretty intense.
Yeah, he's an intense dude, man. Yeah, he's funny.
What about
takeaway is like cursing and stuff, and his core principles are good ones.
Yeah, and Jocko, who was the Jocko Extreme Ownership? I think I read that about the Navy SEALs and kind of, their beliefs on team and just how they look at everything differently. That was a great book as well. Yeah.
He was a team leader, and basically, the sort of takeaway is if anything fails in a team, it's the fault of the leader of the team. Right. And so I think that's true and helpful as a leader.
Yeah, and I love just referencing leader versus manager, coach versus manager or supervisor. I like to get away from those types of terms. So who are your mentors, and what was their best piece of advice for you?
When you say mentors, I'm going to define that as people I want to be like, and I know all these people and I've talked to all these people and they've influenced on me. But I would like to be a combination of four people who have influenced my life. The first is John Morgan, who I referenced earlier. I'm a big admirer of what he's built. And he spent time to talk to me about business development and management and growth. And so, I like, what he's done from sort of a business management and growth perspective. So then he would be one. And then I would say there's a guy in California, Brian Panish, who I've tried a case with, good friend of mine, very, very well known, big verdict lawyer. So, I like to try cases. I've tried cases with him. I would like to have his success in big cases. And he's a good manager as well. He runs his firm very well too. So it'd be Morgan, Panish, and then I would turn to Mark Lanier. I attended his trial academy last year. I thought it was very, very, very good. I'm an admirer of him, and I do mass torts, try mass torts, and I'm an admirer of him in that world. So I'd like to be able to hit the big, like trucking case, kind of like Panish, hit the big, like Vioxx case, like Lanier, run my firm like Morgan. And then the final guy is, I have a lawyer at my firm who's of counsel named Jude Basil, who used to run Jerry Spence's Trial Lawyers College. And so he comes at law from a very human and compassionate perspective. If I could mold all that together, and obviously he's been a huge influence on me. If I could mold all that together, and I've learned from all those guys, that would be my ideal me. And so those guys are my mentors.
That's incredible. So it's like the rising tides raises all boats. You're a combination of the people you spend the most time with, and I like that. So you're always looking, what can I learn from other individuals? Today, John, what are your high value activities? What brings the most value to Gomez trial attorneys that you do?
Man, it's super hard to say, because I feel like I do a lot. And I feel like, I don't want to sort of, give up any part of them, but I would say there's four things, that I do now. One is just, be a visionary. And so, I have sort of plans for the firm and ideas for the firm, that I'm pretty certain that nobody else at the firm would come up with if I didn't come up with them. And so I have a vision for how I want to see the firm in the next 10 years. So I would say that's one. Two, being a leader, like I talked about before. And again, very distinct from being a manager. I've gotten to the point where I'm able to delegate, and allow the teams to do their thing and allow the groups to do their thing, but I can lead, as a visionary at a higher level. So I would say that's two, visionary leader. Three, I'm a trial lawyer. I believe I'm one of the better trial lawyers in the country. And so, I'm always looking for an opportunity to lead by example, lead in combat, like I'm like the general at the front, leading the troops, because we're a trial firm, all my lawyers try cases if I can't. And so then, so trial lawyer, and then, I believe I'm a very good developer of business. So I would say I'm a rainmaker. So, I tend to have, I like people, so if you like people and are kind to people, then they tend to like you back. And so, I get a lot of opportunities for the firm by virtue of that. So, I would say visionary leader, trial lawyer, rainmaker. Rest of the stuff is I'm not very good at.
Well, you're concentrating on what you're great at, and that's you can get your other great team members to do those other things. So yeah, and you're an amazing trial lawyer, and I know you run just interacting with you. I know you're a great leader too with the troops, and So John, one final question here. Do you have any advice for your fellow lawyers trying to grow a successful practice?
Yeah, one, you got to do sort of a gut check and see if you really, are committed to growing a successful practice. And there's going to be sacrifice in that. Like if that is not something you're willing to commit substantial energy and time and thought to, then that's not, in your cards. And so as a threshold issue, my advice would be make sure that's what you want. Because some people might be very comfortable with kind of status quo or getting by, or, and that's fine and wonderful, and lots of great people like that, but if you really want to, grow and have abundant success, I think you have to, realize that you're going to have to, give up some things and really commit a lot of time and energy to it. So other than that, I would say, you always, the mistakes I made, some other mistakes I think I made early was, never constantly asking the hard questions of yourself, your team members, your organization, always re-examining, never being content. And so, you just don't say, oh, I'm not super pleased with this part of my operation, but, that I'm going to leave it at that. You always have to be, well, what's going on over here, and why am I not happy with that? And could we make that better? And I think if you are, open and honest, like they know now that if I've got a problem with something, I'm going to say it, or I have a question about something, I'm going to say it, including myself. Then that is the advice I would give. Always be re-examining, always be getting better. And then thirdly, there's going to be some risk element. You can't, like I've been like this a few times. And so, you want to be smart with your risk, but if you truly want to have success, there's going to be some risk component of it. And so you have to be able to tolerate some element of risk, I think.
Guys, you got to be candid with your team members. You got to always be looking and continuously improving, and you got to be comfortable with applied risk and try to make the best decisions to grow your firm. We've been talking to John Gomez, president and founder of Gomez Trial Attorneys. John, where can people go to learn more?
Our website is thegomezfirm.com. We have a bunch of social media, obviously, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. I have a personal blog, attorneyjohngomez.com, where I try to, put more personal stuff on there. So you can go there and check it out.
Thanks, John. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Rankings Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.